Well, got to do one by the Beatles. The Billboard's Hot 100, September 12th, 1964. There are about 6 or 7 songs by the Beatles on this Hot 100. P.S. I Love You, Matchbox, and Hard Day's Night among the records by the Beatles on the Hot 100. Also, Slow Down, one of the rawest records by the Beatles. This is a raw, impassioned performance by John Lennon, perhaps even more raw. One of his probably one of his more, I hate to use the word unsophisticated. I'll just stick with the word raw. Even more raw, just about as raw as what he did Twisted Shout, the old Isley Brothers song. This is a great R&B. In a way, this is a sound R&B rave up. Remake, Slow Down, although a lot of critics would not agree, and I'll read you one of what the critics said in just a minute. But Slow Down by the Beatles, done by Larry Williams, R&B maestro back in the 50s. Larry Williams off the Specialty record label. His biggest hits was Boney Maroney and also Short Fat Fanny back in 1957, 58. And the song was originally a B-side. Slow Down originally a B-side for Larry Williams. The A-side was Dizzy Miss Lizzy. The Beatles version in 1962 well, actually, the album was called Long Tall Sally. It was an EP, Long Tall Sally EP, released in the UK in the early 60s. And here in the States, Slow Down by the Beatles version was the B-side of Matchbox. Matchbox also on the Hot 100 week of September 9, 1964. This song might have been a little too raw for some people. For one thing, Ringo Starr had lost a little bit of time on his drumming. Paul McCartney's bass. Now, here's the thing about Paul McCartney. You got to remember this about Paul McCartney. A lot of people believe this with some justification. If you subtract out Paul McCartney's songwriting prowess, oh God, he was a brilliant, genius songwriter at times, and his lead singing, if you subtract all that out, he would be considered, some would consider him the best bass player of all time. Paul McCartney. That's some people's opinion. With some, justification. And here's what one critic said about this record. I'll read you what one critic said. A quote from a guy named Ian MacDonald. He criticized the Beatles. He said it was one of the Beatles. He criticized the performance of this record. He said it was one of the Beatles' least successful rock and roll covers, lacking bottom, drive, and basic cohesion. And he also stated the guitar solo is embarrassing and the sound balance a shambles. And he also pointed out there's a place in the song, it comes in at a minute and 14. That's his quote, by the way, by MacDonald. But he also points out an edit at 1 minute and 14 seconds into the record where the piano disappears. Perhaps temporarily. And guess who played piano on that record? George Martin, fifth Beatle. So, just the opinions just go all over the map. Some think, hey, this is the Beatles raw. And after some of the polished records like Hard Day's Night, I Want to Hold Your Hand, it's nice to hear them cut loose of some of their early stuff. But then there are some who think, oh my gosh, this is not one of their best remakes. But take it or leave it. Hey, I mean, it's the Beatles, and it didn't matter to them. It doesn't make any difference. Who cares? I mean, you got 6 or 7 songs on Billboard's Hot 100 the week of September 12th, 1967. Even if the Slow Down was one of the worst records the Beatles ever came out with, they had the scintillating records like Hard Day's Night and Matchbox and P.S. I Love You. And Slow Down, a lot of people don't even remember the record. They don't even remember the Larry Williams version of the record. So, hey, who cares? I tell you one thing, though. This record leapfrogged from number 99 to number 67. Sure did. The Beatles version of Slow Down jumped 32 notches the week of September 12, 1964. It will peak at number 25. All right. Beatles sticking it to their critics. Here it is, Slow Down by the Beatles.